Okay, hi, and welcome to another episode of In the Spotlight. Today we have a really interesting guest from an outstanding company, Prateek Goel. Great to have you from Wiz, who's now Google. Prateek, I'll just say a few words to introduce you. Prateek is the global head of business value at Wiz, the world's fastest growing cybersecurity company that's now part of Google. Prateek, you got 20 years of experience in amazing logos with some of the best sales teams at American Airlines, Capital One, Okta, Sumo Logic, Aviatrix, and others. You specialize in value consulting, helping executives quantify and realize the value and the impact of cloud security investments, which is obviously extending into all of the existing disruptions and agentic and others. You hold an MBA from Emory University based in Dallas. Thanks for taking the time, Pratik.
Yeah, happy to be here.
All right, so let's start at a high level before we dive in. I'd love to get your take from all the companies that you've been at in the different industries. How do you define value selling?
How do I define value selling? So, Roy, firstly, I do want to be very transparent that I have never carried a bag. I've never been in the role of an account executive. I think that's the toughest job in the industry to go and convince somebody to buy a product from you. I think it's a big challenge. And my internalization of value selling is essentially when we are able to convince a prospect that they are actually getting outcomes that will result in tangible and intangible benefits for their organization that will be much bigger than the cost of the product that they are buying. So that's how I think about it. It's on us to educate our buyer what those outcomes can be and how do we put a handle on those outcomes. But we shift the mindset from you're buying a product or you're buying a feature, you're buying a functionality, we shift it to you're actually buying an outcome. You're buying a business outcome, and that business outcome will unlock value. It could be personal value and business value, but it will unlock value for your organization and yourself. So,
Amazing.
that's how I
So
think value selling.
yeah, amazing. So you touched on, actually, I think you touched on three different dimensions here. The first one is the outcomes, right? So unrelated to the price you pay and unrelated to the benefit, the quantification of the benefit, the outcome itself needs to be aligned to your priorities, right? So if it doesn't solve a priority, high priority problem for you or high impact pain for you, it doesn't mean anything, right? So that's one dimension. The second dimension you brought in was the quantification and the ROI basically. Am I getting something that's worthwhile my investment? And the third dimension, which you alluded to, but I think is also very interesting, is how is the outcome impacting the person who's buying personally versus how is it impacting the organization? So when you look at these three dimensions, how are you prioritizing? How are you managing those three dimensions in one message that you deliver to an executive?
Yeah. So firstly, we have to remember there's never one person, right? Like there's multiple people that we are interacting with in a typical engagement, and they all have different needs. So typically what my team, myself, when we get involved, we are working with practitioners and technical champions, and then we start working our way up, right? And we want to go in partnership with those people to the next level and the next level and so on. So we typically will never start with the CFO kind of person or the C level person. We'll typically work with the practitioner and then go up. So to prioritize the three dimensions that you mentioned, we have to sift through what is the outcome for them, right? So let's set it in cybersecurity setting, right? Like that's the world that I live in today. So if I'm in a Wiz engagement and we're talking to a cloud security practitioner, right? They are evaluating cloud security tooling. They need cloud security tooling to be better at their job, to better secure their organization, right? They are thinking in terms of their life. So their life is, hey, I'm coming in Monday morning. I log into my current consoles and I get bombarded by all these alerts that hey, you have an issue here, you have a problem here, everything's flashing red, right? That's their life right now. So an outcome for them is, can I give you clarity? Can I give you full visibility into where your problem lies? And then can I give you a prioritized view that you should start at this issue and work your way down from here versus giving you all this noise and you figure it out. So these are the outcomes that that person is interested in, right? And then what is the impact of those outcomes? So their life improves, right? They are able to actually go and solve the most critical things first. They save time and effort. These are the things that matter to that practitioner. So we are prioritizing it based on the persona we are talking to, right? So your question was, how do you prioritize? And within this, there's a personal angle, and then there's a for the business angle. There's a definitely a personal string that we touch, right? Like literally, you can sleep at night. Like you can go and you can take a vacation, right? Like these are personal things. And if you solve these problems, you'll get promoted, right? And so on, right? So what value does that have is hard to quantify, but it's part of our narrative. We are actually not just building an ROI business case. We are talking about a holistic narrative that we arm that persona, and then that persona can take with us ideally to the decision maker, and then we have to pivot because the outcomes that matter to the decision maker are different. So we are doing this at layers, and we have to win every layer.
Amazing. I think one of the sort of tricks to teach reps to do this is to ask, so what, right? So you solve this problem, so what? Why does it matter? Why does it matter? Why does it matter? And sort of go up in the through the chain of command and all the way to a business problem, strategic business problem. Because if you don't solve the highest priority cybersecurity problems, your brand actually might get harmed if you spend your time on less important ones. And so that's really the alignment. I would also mention that you have two audiences always you're selling to: the audience you're meeting and the audience you're never meeting, right? And you're creating that narrative in that ROI case also for the people who are not emotionally impacted by you meeting you or the rep in the company. They just look at you as a, as a deck or as an Excel, and they need to approve a decision or support a decision. And so that's the second audience. And I also love that you mentioned that, value assessment or a BVA or whatever the asset is called is not just an ROI case. Nobody buys just because of ROI. They buy because you're solving the problem, you're telling the right narrative, and the ROI helps them justify the cost and the decision, and it serves also, finance, CFO, and others. And so I completely agree. And so I think the right way to look at this is sort of a multidimensional discussion, right? Just like you explained. Amazing. I mean, you've worked with some really strong teams. I mean, Sumo Logic, an amazing company. Capital One, Okta, right? A huge company. When you look at the value team, the business value teams in those companies, the people who are the specialists at sort of partnering with the reps to build those business cases and help them elevate the discussion. What's their number one challenge as a team, right, as a practice in the organization?
I think that has varied in every organization that I've been in. So, for context, I was part of the Okta value consulting team. And after that, at Sumo Logic and Aviatrix and Wiz, I was privileged to be the first person that they hired and brought in to build the practice out. And each of those organizations, the challenges that I saw and or people on my team see has been very different. And it also changes over time, even within the same organization. So the challenges that I was facing 3, 4 years ago at Wiz, when I first started, very different from the challenges that my team faces today. Right.
Mhm.
So it's a very broad question, and I can give you a high level take of what types of challenges I've faced and what
Yeah,
I did.
I mean, maybe we look at sort of early stage, less mature versus more mature.
Yeah. So we went through that at Wiz. So for context, when I started at Wiz, this is almost 4 years ago, we were maybe at 50 million ARR, and it was purely a product led motion. The Wiz product back then was mind blowing. It still is mind blowing. And the sales motion literally was, hey, you're a prospect. You say you have a cloud security challenge. Let me show you the demo. Now let me connect in your environment in a proof of value, and done. That's it. That was the sales motion for, like, I might be being a little facetious. So when you think about it, we didn't even do value selling. And
Right.
and so if you're a value consultant, what is your role then if you're not even pushing for value selling? So the reason why I was brought in was organically we started, or Wiz started hiring salespeople, and we're getting to that point where the talent that they were bringing in started recognizing that we need to actually set up a value selling motion and started asking for help in this space. So
Define the value that's getting sold rather than the features.
correct. So it was a transition, and Wiz actually transitioned a lot over the last 3-4 years from being a very product led motion to now actually talking about value selling. I mean, think about it, it actually makes sense. That's the maturity journey that any company in the tech space goes through, right? So we went through that as an early person trying to set up value selling. The big challenge was that just did not exist. The motion did not exist. So setting up that process along with the rest of the go-to-market organization, thinking about how we would enable the field in the general sense to really start thinking about outcomes like we were talking about earlier on this call versus just showing up with a demo that is super generic, that is not tied to the problem, that might be very specific. We should be doing discovery. We should be understanding what their pain points are. We should be customizing the demo to address those pain points. We should be creating a proof of value that is super informed by that so that we're not wasting their time and we're not wasting our time. And we just showcase exactly what is needed and in exactly the most impactful way, and then layer whatever business case on top of it and so on. That whole process had to be set up from scratch. So that was a big challenge back then. But the challenge now is scale. How do we scale? Completely flipped around. Now we are $1 billion plus ARR. This is all public information. And we have a hardcore value selling go to market motion. There was a huge change in sales leadership a couple of years back. The new sales leadership team that came in really pushed to change the culture and really drive the value selling process hard. So we've been doing that for the last 2 years. We set the stage, and that's how we operate now. So now it is great. My team is 10 people. How do we scale? And how
So
do we
it's
do it?
it's adoption in every deal, basically. Adoption of value in every deal.
Yeah. So our vision statement, my team's vision statement is a business case with every pricing proposal. How do we make that vision come to life is the challenge. And it is a huge challenge.
And that's what we see more and more, adoption into every deal, and in a way extending this expertise that your team has into the rest of the sales team, so they can do this when you're not there. So that's the maturity challenge. Let's go back to the early days. The early days that you just came in. What about companies that haven't hired yet the first, the Prateek, the first person to go and define this? They have a decent sales team. They're growing nicely. They're not ready yet to go and build a value team, but they want to start maturing themselves into a value
Yeah.
selling motion. They might not be able to do everything you can do with a value team that sort of owns the practice, but how would you start that off? If you had an hour with a CRO and a RevOps person, what would you tell them they need to put in place first to start that before they invest in a full value team?
Yeah, well, I've done this 3 times now. And you don't start with a value team. You start with one person and you prove it out and then you gradually scale, right? So there's an inflection point where you're making that decision. Okay, we need to bring in an incremental person, and that person is going to help build this out for us. So we can talk about when you get to that point, right? So firstly, I think think about it in any sales cycle. This is a sales process, if you will, right? Like you have to sell to your leadership that you need this process. And for that, there has to be a pain point. So what CROs need to internalize is, if they've gotten there, is we are actually losing out on deals. We are actually losing out on revenue because we are not doing this. Until and unless that pain point doesn't exist, this will never happen. And it depends on where you are in the stage of your maturity. It may not be that there may not be pain, right? Like at the early stages of Wiz, we were literally super successful without the need to do this, and that's fine. So it just depends on that. But you need that pain. So revenue leaders, RevOps leaders will only invest in this if they actually see the pain that, oh my God, I'm actually losing customers. I'm losing out on money on the table.
Yeah.
Could have had this deal for more if I actually position it properly. Churn is another issue. I have existing customers that are churning because they don't see the value in my product. I'm not able to defend it. Unless that pain is not there, they will never invest in this function. So once that pain shows up, that's when they're like, okay, we need to bring in somebody that can help this motion. So that's been my perception. And then you build from there, basically.
Very good. I would also maybe add that before they're ready to make a big investment, once they've recognized that pain, they can define a very shallow type of asset that doesn't go all the way into that requires sort of an expert to go build, but to start getting the motion of tracking. Is this has we have we done the work in this deal to do the minimal piece around value discussion and sort of get it into the DNA of the company before they go invest and see that they're able to start elevating the conversation from features. And I think there are many companies that are at this inflection point asking themselves exactly sort of that question. Do we have the pain? How can we find the pain? Leaving money on the table, churn. I think those are great indicators. Let's go to the later part. So your goal is to make value part of every proposal, part of every deal. How do you do that? What's the approach to go and do this when you have hundreds, sometimes thousands of sales reps and you said you are 10 people?
Yeah, I don't have the answer. I wish I did. We are on a journey. It's always a maturity journey for my team as well. To give you some scale, 4 years ago, I was the only person at Wiz. My team has grown from there to today. We have 10 people. So this it's decent growth. And Wiz is a $1 billion revenue ARR company. And we've got much bigger examples of this, right? Like, so you talk to ServiceNow, you talk to even Google, right? Like they have 60 people on their value consulting team, 100 people on their value consulting team, but their revenue and scale is much, much bigger. So there's a journey that you're on with your organization and so on. We in our practice and in every function have a huge opportunity now with AI, right? Like let's accept that that is true and super cliche to say, but we have to scale. That is one lever that we have to pull really hard, and that wasn't available to us 2 years ago, but it is today. So we need to recognize that, and that needs to be a part of our toolkit. Outside of that, it's a sales process also. So we have to showcase adoption and impact in the work that we do. So that is the only way to grow and scale this out. And if that is not happening, if we are not able to show impact, or if you're not having impact, there's no reason to grow, right? So what we are doing is we've got our team, it's geographically distributed, right? So the sales team is geographically distributed, my team is geographically distributed, and we have ownership by geography. And we have to show impact of our work and adoption of our work in every geography and show that when we are doing this, it has direct impact to whatever metrics that you would like to use: win rates, average seat price, churn rates are down, whatever metrics that are important to the CRO. So you are basically building a business case for the value team. And you're then saying to them, look, and my team is now getting capacity constrained. And let me prove that out as well. So here are all the opportunities out there. And this is the capacity model. An individual person can do so much work. So my adoption or my coverage is so much. And if you believe in the results that my team is driving, and if you believe in the outcomes that we can get, then it makes sense to invest an incremental person because my coverage is actually declining and so on. So we are doing all of this at the same time in parallel. And the challenge, if I go back to the AI thing, the challenge is that totally goes to the coverage argument. I need to be able to prove now to people that I am actually becoming more efficient and effective as an individual. I can do more. And despite that, I am reaching a breaking point and my coverage is not able to keep up. So that's how we've been scaling.
That makes total sense. Would you agree that the value team, by the way, just like any specialist team, right? Value team is a specialist team. They specialize in a practice. By definition, will always be a bottleneck. You will grow your reps beyond your specialists. And so if that's the case, how are you creating an escape velocity from the size of the value team into something that can happen beyond the value team? Is that you should target?
Yeah, I agree with that. The scale of the sales team will always be growing more than any specialist team, including my team. And it should be the case. We should be able to show efficiencies in scale, right? Like, so as you're adding more revenue, as you're adding more salespeople, that doesn't mean that you add to all of the supporting cast in the exact same rate. So that is important for economics and everything, and we need to follow that model. And the only way to do it is through tooling. So I know, like Roy, you have a platform that you are co building, right? So we have an instance of that in our team, and we are at Wiz right now. We are using that tooling to get us a lot of scale. And our use case for Spotlight is to provide it as a self-help process for smaller deals for our small and medium-sized businesses.
So you focus on the specialized, sort of largest, complicated deals, and you start getting self-service into the smaller ones. And I also think when something like this succeeds is it turns you and your team not just to executors but to orchestrators, right?
Yes.
So you don't just execute a deal by deal, but you look at the entire practice and orchestrate it. You understand the needs of all the places where you're in, where you're not in, but you're accountable and driving all of that impact, basically.
Yes, yes. And we need to have a strategy for each segment that is actually tailored for that segment. So for the growth and mid-market segments, they have a lot more volume of deals, and their deal sizes are much, much smaller, simpler. I would say, relatively speaking, right? It's still a hard sale. Sales is the
Right.
hardest job. uh, it's still very tough. But relatively speaking, when you are talking to an American Airlines as a customer versus a small startup, it's a very different proposition.
Right.
So take that into account. But my team, we are trying to protect our bandwidth, and we want to go and work on the biggest deals that impact the biggest chunk of the plan for the year, for the quarter, whatever it is. So we are trying to build scale, and we are using Spotlight to create that self-help process, and we orchestrate that, to your point, and we deliver that as a mechanism for the growth and mid-market reps, so that they have the ability to create a business case in their environment, right?
Yeah.
So that is one tool that we have in our tool belt. The other is we have to use AI to become more scalable. So we are trying, right? It's a journey. We are on it. We are trying. It is absolutely helping us in better discovery. It's absolutely helping us in having a great narrative and going back and forth with our prospects and our customers. It's starting to help us in constructing our assets, but we have to basically get more out of each body on my team by leveraging that helps us scale. And then we need top down leadership. So without that, it is not going to work, right? So
Yes.
that starts from the sales leader. So Mike Ernest at Wiz heads up all our sales globally. His direct reports, Dave Goodmark in the Americas, Josh Rayner in EMEA, Dimitri Chen in the APAC. All of these guys are pushing down, top down. They're like asking their reps, "Hey, you are driving a big deal. What is the business case for this? What?" And
It
so
becomes
on.
it becomes part of the qualification of the deal. If it doesn't, if it stays a separate standalone activity, then the adoption doesn't happen. It happens when creating a business case or a BVA is the same as doing discovery. It's the same as developing a champion. It's the same as driving a POC. It's part of the qualification of the deal.
Correct. And they're inspecting for that. Now, they're not going to inspect that in every deal, right? In their territory. They are going to care about the biggest of the biggest deals and work their way down. 80% of their revenue target will be driven by 20% of the deals, right? Or maybe even more flex than that. So my team, we want to be in those 20% of those deals that drive the 80% of volume. That's how we are scaling. And then it'll be very hard to get 100% coverage, but where we don't have coverage, it's the lower impact deals. But we are trying to scale with AI. We're trying to scale with Spotlight and so on, right? So that is our approach.
Makes total sense. So I wanna change a dimension and talk a little bit about your industry. And I spent time in that industry as well. And cybersecurity is a very um, elusive industry when it comes to value. Some of the value ties directly to productivity, but some of the value is all about risk and brand and things that are very elusive. My question is this: why is value selling more important than cybersecurity? Or maybe not. Maybe it's less important, but I think it's actually more in cybersecurity specifically because of the nature of that industry.
Yeah. I'll share my thoughts about this. So when you say is more important, then there's a reference point and you're comparing it to something else. I'd like to get out of that. I'm not sure if it's more important or less important. Let's talk about why it's important. Okay.
There.
The big challenge in cybersecurity is that the people that are buying the tools, right? The people that are buying the Wiz platform, they are super technical. This is a super technical space, super technical problem. Very technical people that have spent their career solving security challenges. They think in a dimension that I don't understand. I'm not a technical person, right? I don't understand it. You are dealing with the most technical minds sometimes in the organization. That's great. And they will figure out the technical needs that they have to solve the technical pains that they have. But this is also a business problem that they have to solve. They need to go and interface with an audience which is not technical, which does not understand cybersecurity and its challenges, but they have to decide on investments. They have to decide on whether the next dollar that they spend should be on cybersecurity or something else. And our technical buyers don't have the skills to succeed in that conversation.
Very
So,
interesting.
so I work at Wiz, right? Uh, I succeed when Wiz succeeds, I succeed, right? So I have to make sure that my buyer can actually be super successful when they go and interface with finance people who have no idea about cloud security, who couldn't care less. And so it's really important for me to coach my technical champions to be very successful because, like you said earlier in our conversation, these conversations happen and we are not even in the room. These are conversations that are happening in boardrooms and we may not even have a seat in the room. We are relying on our technical champion to be successful. So it's really on us to make sure that they are set up for success.
Excellent. Yeah, go ahead.
And yeah, like, and just to wrap that point, right? Like the CFO doesn't care about are you fixing alerts? They care about business outcomes. So we have to set up our champion for success for that conversation, and that's why it's very important to do this in security.
This is one of the better answers I've heard about specifically value in cybersecurity, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, we know the amount of effort that goes into trying to assess risk and quantify it, so CISOs can justify investments in cybersecurity. It's a board level decision, and so 100%. I think you're right on, and this is super important. I think there's a different angle from a completely different side, which is also this industry is so aggressive and so highly funded that the aggressiveness of sales teams is some of the highest in any industry. The messaging, as we know, if you're in the industry, if you've been to RSA, I mean, all booths sounds the same, right? So messaging is very tight, execution is very tight, and so the getting an edge in your execution can make all the difference in the competitive nature of this industry. But I think your point is absolutely the pain point of your customers and the unique pain point of a very technical customer base. So I love that answer. Amazing, Pratik. I want to look last maybe topic to discuss is to the future. You spoke about AI. I mean, we're all in this disruption. We're all living it and understanding how it's impacting all of us. What are people missing when they think about how they're going to leverage AI specifically in the value practice? What do you think most people need some help to understand?
Yeah, I don't know. This is a good thing. And probably lot more conversation needs to happen. That I need to also learn myself. I'm not super confident in where this is going myself right now, Roy. To be very frank with you, I have a point of view. My point of view is that uh, AI is actually going to differentiate value consulting even more. And the softer parts of value consulting will get even more weight. So when I am being a consultant to our prospects, our technical champions, that interaction is going to become even more important going forward. And to build that trust, to understand their pain points, to help them understand where we are coming from and get their buy in and building that in a collaborative way, that piece is what is going to stand out. because doing the calculations, doing the legwork is going to become cheap and quick and easy with AI. So that stuff is almost automated. What is more important now is the interactions and driving the confidence behind this work, which we have to do as a consultant. So it'll actually put even more weight on the human elements of this process. And honestly, like, as value consultants, we should appreciate that, because we should be leveraging AI to do all the dirty work for us, right?
Analytical work, yeah.
Yeah, and we should be having fun interacting and doing the human work, and scaling that is the challenge.
I
So
love it.
that's how I see. I don't know, like, where this could go.
I love your answer. It actually is connected to a point of view we talked about in a different episode, and also some of it on different podcasts, where AI is actually forcing us to understand better where our human parts are and focus on those and let go the things that we used to do that are less human. And so it helps us define how we can excel at being human, which is building trust, creating confidence in the numbers that AI give us or the assets that AI generate for us. And I think that's a brilliant answer. And I personally, big believer in it. I think that's going to happen in sales as a whole. I think in sales as a whole, sales has a human element to it, which is really becoming a trusted advisor. And there is an analytical part of sales, which is understanding where the risk is, where the deal is, where am I in the playbook. So being able to hand off to AI the analytical pieces and focus more and more on the human elements will allow sales to scale, value sales to scale, and value consultants as well. Prateek, great discussion. Thank you so much. You've obviously done an amazing journey, and you're defining your next step in that journey. And in your spaceship behind you, you're gonna get to that destination, I'm sure. Thanks, Prateek.
Yeah, thank you. Shout out to my team. Like, you cannot do this by yourself. You might be the first person in, but you need a team. The other thing is, you need a diverse team. You don't want a team where everybody thinks like you. And we at Wiz, thankfully and very gladly, are building a very diverse team. So I think that is very important. Also, when we get together in a room, like, there are 10 different ways to look at the same problem. It's amazing, and that is another human element that comes in, and so, like, that's another thing to build on, maybe another conversation. But yeah, my team is amazing, and I owe it all to them.
Beautiful. It takes the value practice into a multidimensional space and not, let's all march in the ROI direction and not think how we think about this problem. Amazing. Thank you so much, Prateek.
All right, all right, we can stop recording. Yeah.
Yes, 1 sec. All right.